For AM 560 The Answer. To learn more and to see a sample of their work, just visit KilloranPhotography.com. That's KILLORAN Photography.com. Or call them at 708-361-0025. Tom Killoran Photography, capturing important life moments for over 30 years.
From the Team Hawkbird Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, about 20 minutes. Outbound, 15 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 27 minutes. Outbound, about 45 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 32 minutes. Outbound, 27 minutes. On the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 38 minutes. Outbound, about 21 minutes. And on the Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Burn Interchange, 17 minutes. Outbound, 11 minutes. Traffic is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants? With medical PPO insurance, it's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now check your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Breezy rain and drizzle today, the high 53. Some off and on rain and drizzle tonight, low 47. Passing shower for tomorrow morning, otherwise a cloudy day, high 57. And then clouds and cool on Friday, the high Friday at 61. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Glenbrook South. Glenbrook South lost their Turning Point USA chapter. They posted this flyer that has a picture that I guess that's taken from a popular video game called Among Us. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what it is. I guess it's a video game where you try to identify the enemy or something. Anyway, the picture from that's essentially ripped from that video game, as I understand it, with a hammer and sickle on it, and the caption, "China kinda sus," like suspicious.
Yeah.
That drew the ire of two neo-Marxist members of the Illinois General Assembly on the North Shore there. Two Illinois Stasi. State Representative Jennifer Gong Gershowitz and
Of course, she has a hyphenated name.
State Senator Laura Fine. That's positively Dickensian, the irony. The clear intent of this flyer was to stoke xenophobic and anti-Asian sentiment, said Gong Gershowitz. She and her gal pal, contacted by constituents in an Asian organization from across Illinois, upset and offended by the poster. Following up to see, have those kids at Glenbrook South been, properly re-educated yet? They issued a letter to the community discussing a meeting they had with the educrat in charge of Glenbrook 225, some eunuch named Charles Johns. We expressed our conviction that this racist, harmful sort of content must not be permitted at a time when anti-Asian racism and hate crimes are being committed at a disturbing frequency.
Oh, still?
We must come together as a community in support of the values outlined in Glenbrook South's mission statement. Oh, I'm sure those high-minded values are lived out to the spirit of the language. By the way, is there any time in which hate crimes are not committed at a disturbing frequency? That they're committed at an appropriate frequency? These are just phrases that the lobotomized left use. They don't know what they mean. They sound properly indignant and urgent, but they're meaningless. The Johns, that eunuch, superintendent in charge of Glenbrook Schools, 225, committed to taking several important steps toward healing. Let the healing begin from this incident, as well as preventing similar ones in the future.
What students are injured?
Hands are going to be lopped off at Glenbrook South to prevent posters from being made in the future. Upon learning of the context of the poster, Glenbrook South's chapter of Turning Point USA submitted. It was taken down. It was not in compliance with our policies and guidelines, according to the administrators. An Orwellian group. During the course of the investigation, the sponsor elected to discontinue his sponsorship, and district policies require there be a sponsor for all active clubs. So, right, you threaten the teacher to stop the sponsorship of the chapter and threaten the students from expressing themselves. Because, of course, you can't be critical of the Chinese Communist Party
Dan,
and their Uyghur slave camps, for example. Tiananmen Square, anybody? You can't be critical of the Chinese Communist Party without expressing anti-Asian sentiment, according to these two state legislators who preside over the worst governed state in the history of America. And by the way, the state of our wonderful government schools in the wealthy honky suburbs, like Glenbrook South, which is, in Glenview, and Northbrook, which are two members of the Union of Soviet Socialist Honky Suburbs, the USSHS, along with Evanston, Oak Park, River Forest. You know the drill. For more on the state of government K through 12, somebody who formerly taught at one of those schools in the USSHS suburb, former Glenbrook South history teacher, founder of Mr. J-USA, MrJ-USA.com, online teaching. Matthew Janecek joins us. Matthew Janecek, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan and Amy, real good to be back with you.
But before we get into this and other related matters, just refresh people's recollection. It's been a minute since you've been on with us. Refresh people's recollection of your experience at Glenbard South, before we get to Glenbrook South. Glenbard South, teaching history there for 2 decades, as you did.
Yeah, no problem. Started at Glenbard North, actually in 2001, and taught there for about 17 years, and then moved over to South because of the same things you guys are talking about right there. And moved over to South, thought things might get better, didn't really get better. The indoctrination camps are, in full swing. So ultimately I left and just resigned amid all that, and I saw the writing on the wall coming, so I started my own online deal, and I've been busy with that ever since and happy as a clam.
Well, and how has that gone? I mean, some notoriety when you left Glenbard South because you were willing to be outspoken about the teachers' unions and some of these administrators and the indoctrination that was afoot in schools like the Glenbard schools. And when you say things are going well with MrJ-USA.com, this is people fleeing these indoctrination camps, even if they may be going there because they need the credential, but they're fleeing to actually learn things like U.S. history.
When you were just telling your great story right there, it's kind of like I felt like I was back in the Matrix and looking at a board or a school board or a panel of assistant principals, a labyrinth of insanity in front of you. And I'm looking at them in bewilderment that they're standing by things that are completely, like you said, Marxist, communist nonsense. And And that's just not well received anymore. You're not allowed to discuss those kinds of things in the paradigm that you're in right now. So I just didn't want to play in that sandbox anymore. And and now, one great example, I just had a class of 3 Chinese kids in America that were taking the AP U.S. history test. And I would ask them, hey guys, what is your teacher talking about amidst all the interesting stuff that's happening in the world right now? And to a kid, they're like, nobody talks about anything, Mr. J. They don't ever bring up anything that's connected to the present.
Wow.
And by that you mean they just go back and talk about America being the systemically racist country, and with an obsession on slavery as the original sin and the only thing worth talking about, and how the tentacles of slavery's impact reach to the present, and why reparations are necessary, and just that's sort of myopia about America. Is that what you're suggesting?
I think there's going to be part of that definitely by default, but I don't know what's worse. They're just going to follow exactly what's in the book. Whatever the government-approved book tells them happened is what they're going to regurgitate. And it is a test-based apparatus. Get kids to get a 4 or 5 or 3 on the AP exam so they can get college credit and just continue to move right through the matrix.
So it's Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, and then you vomit that up on the AP exam and you get your college credit and you move on.
I think that definitely is a safe path to take. I always tell those guys, hey, you're going to be writing these exams in the essays, so know who's going to be evaluating your essay.
Yeah. Well, how did you teach history, and did you talk about, real world events? And do you think maybe they're not talking about it because Trump's president right now?
Oh, that's 100% correct. I didn't see the culture really change on a dime until 2016. As soon as he got elected, public education, there were teachers, I think I mentioned to you guys last time, they were crying in the hallway the first time he was elected. So everybody was turned upside down. I continued to teach the way, in a way I always had. Of course, it morphed a little bit as I learned more things about history and really the power of money, and that ties right into the education paradigm too. Money makes the world go round, and as soon as you follow the traces of the roots of historical money, you pretty much get the power. And that's always been a priority with me, is have kids understand the pyramid of power. Who's on top around the world, and how did they get there? How do they maintain it? Why are they doing it that way? And when have people resisted that throughout history? These patterns are all over the place and actually clearly seen through history, but we repeat ourselves all the time because we just don't learn it correctly,
Well, but it's not. This predates Trump. It's so much bigger than Trump. Trump may have been an accelerant, but it's this is ideological, and and it continues in all sorts of forms that you thought would be passé at this point. Some people did, not me. Like, for example, last week, the announcement that the Palo Alto schools, Silicon Valley, rich, intelligent, technically proficient, are doing away with their advanced classes because, feelings.
Yeah, it's scary. Now, you mentioned just a second ago that this has been going on a long time. I don't want to give like a history lesson, but at the end of the day, when you work all the way back to the turn of the century, 18 to 1900, you're talking about the Marxist movement, and they did get here. Joe McCarthy in the 50s really wasn't that far off. And, I teach history a smidge different today. I often say, like, hey, guys, when people get assassinated or assassination attempts take place, it's kind of important to go trace the roots of that. And let's look at all the people who've been assassinated or taken out or died mysterious deaths early. And basically, you get to a lot of the people that are trying to run obstacles to what you're talking about right now.
But enough about the Clinton family.
Yeah.
So what about Glenbrook South? This example I led our conversation off with, and these legislators intervening to litigate a poster at a high school from some student group. That is very very Mao or very Soviet. Yeah. And I just wonder, how, particularly in the great, quote unquote, government schools in our leafy suburbs, How pervasive are examples like that Glenbrook South story, do you think?
I think it's worse than you say, because it's kind of like a lot of the participants are unwilling and they don't understand the divide and conquer scheme of Marxism, the left-right paradigm. Put people in camps, put them in groups, black, white, Jew, Christian, Muslim, it doesn't matter. Whatever group you want to put people in, and then keep them divided and arguing and amongst themselves over nonsense. And that system is global. And it's just look at Comintern International back in the day. They want that system. They want divide and conquer. And, you used to teach, one of the ways I changed is we used to teach the political paradigm as a left and right paradigm, but that's actually inaccurate. It's more about zero power on one end for government and 100% power on the other end. And our republic is somewhere, toward the freedom side. We have laws that we follow, but at the end of the day, even the political system is taught incorrectly by the system to keep people divided.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think
that's a good observation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also to the quality of your students over time, including to the present, as you have sort of a selective enrollment engagement at this point. Because we see this from test scores, the NAEP reading and math proficiency scores, and despite a exponential increase in spend, I mean, Illinois, 2 million kids in K through 12, and you have basically a third doing reading at grade level and a little less than a third doing math at grade level, including in all of these wonderful schools in the rich white suburbs. The numbers are not providing much evidence of an ROI.
No, they don't. The system doesn't teach the big three. I call them the 3 F's, but it's funny. But philosophy, faith, and finance. They don't teach any of those 3 in the public school anymore. And that divide and conquer scheme, when you look at a curriculum in a traditional suburban high school system like you're talking about, they divide courses into camps. And, you have your 5 or 6 classes a day. You very, very rarely see any interrelationship between the programs. But when I'm teaching my kids now, we dig deep into philosophy, its origins. We do the Socratic method. We study the origins of all faiths and look at what they believe and portend, and then what is extremism inside their faith. We look to study, like I said earlier, the financial aspect of global power. And these are the things that, I think open-minded, really curious people that realize the world around them is not what they were told, is bringing people away from the system, whether they supplement with a system like mine or whether they remove themselves entirely. It's very difficult to unplug from this matrix in a holistic way, all at one time. Yeah.
So who are you getting? A lot of asylum seekers from government K through 12 schools that at least want to bolt on, or who are your students these days?
Yeah. Well, great. I have about a handful of American-based students who basically are a few of those that have withdrawn entirely, and then some of them are Christian-based operations. There's a program I'm a part of now called Equip 210, and that's a digital online curriculum, Christian-based. And then my Chinese classes, where I have students from all over the world. I'll be teaching one coming up here with Chinese kids in Germany. That'll be interesting. But the kids in China, all those kids, they're basically the children of the privileged or upper classes. Who take their English-speaking schools over there. They take their standard curriculum, but they also know it's not maybe up to par, because a lot of those Chinese parents went to college in the States here, and a lot of them went to some high-end schools. So they have an awareness of what their kids' education is supposed to be, so they look to supplement online with things like my classes. And we open up. I'm teaching the things I talked about with you guys, philosophy, faith, and finance, to second and third graders in China. I use PowerPoint and reading. We don't do, we don't waste time with the nonsense, the fluff, the Marxist and we don't waste time with any of that. We get right into the stuff, and we connect past the present and we have a discussion Socratically for an hour, and then I see him next week, and we go through that process again. And it's the most rewarding thing that I have ever done educationally, and it's so crazy, guys. My boss, or the woman who finds me all of these classes and kids, they thank me after all classes. They think what I'm doing is marvelous,
Yeah.
And here I'm
right.
crucified for it.
Yeah, right. No, I get you're right. You when you're getting value, that's why I thank my Pilates instructor after every session. You're getting value for it, right? It's not fun, but you're getting value. You're getting value for it. By the way, you're in Texas now, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And
right in the middle.
Where?
Right in the Lampasas, Texas. It's a town of about 8,000 people. Right in the middle, about an hour 20 northwest of Austin.
And George Strait's guitar player is your
pastor?
church's pastor?
Yeah, this is a very special community. I just had lunch and talked with him a lot yesterday. He is not only is he a beautiful, humble individual who's been a musician his whole life. He spent the last 10 years, though, in the ministry, but also playing. And he's very quiet and humble about that, but he is. And he's played with some of the best: Ricky Skaggs, Merle Haggard, Leanne Womack, George, you name it. He's Randy Travis, and so many great artists and people. And this whole area I'm in is surrounded by spiritual people. Even if they don't all agree politically, it's different here. And what I've noticed is your friends don't ostracize you here if you think differently.
Must be nice.
In Illinois, I wish I could say it was different in Illinois, but it's not. Or,
Yeah.
I wish I could say it's the same, but
Ostracized by your community. Yes,
Yeah.
a chapter in the book.
So does he play All My Exes Live in Texas for his processional at the beginning of Mass?
No, it doesn't go there. But I do get to play in the church band every weekend, and that is a hoot. And when he's playing solos over songs that God helped me write, it's a blessing.
That's great. Matthew Janecek, former Glenbard South history teacher. Hey, Glenbard South families, do you miss Matthew Janecek? You should. Founder of Mr. J-USA.com online teaching. Matthew, good to talk to you again. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
You guys, take care.
You too. Yep. And thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey